Hey guys, Dr. J here. Today we're going to be talking about mold and mycotoxins and your kids. Could mold be impacting your child's brain and neurological development? We'll look at a study today as well. So we'll dive in today on that topic. If you like today's video, give me a thumbs up. Love to see your comment down below and your thoughts on the topic as well. All right, so let's dive in. So we have molds. We have fungus is the big umbrella, and then we have certain molds that your aspergillus, your penicillium, the molds that you get that produce mycotoxins. These molds are multicellular, right? These are going to be multicellular hyphae or fungus. And then you're going to have unicellular. These are going to be things like candida that can grow in your gut type of fungus. It's kind of a yeast, and you can produce toxins from candida in your gut as well, acetaldehyde, and then the different molds and the environmental molds that are more outside or inside your home, especially with water damage, that can produce various mycotoxins as well. And these mycotoxins are like the off-gassing. It's the flatulence of the mold. Certain molds produce it. So you're going to have molds from like water damage, like Aspergillus family, Penicillium family, Stachybotrys family, Fusarium family, and then you have different mycotoxins that come off of those molds, whether it's trichothecenes, whether it's ochratoxin, etc. So there's a lot of different, there's like 300 plus mycotoxins that can be produced by those molds. And so you can test for the mycotoxins. If we know those molds are there, we're going to just assume that those mycotoxins are being produced, and we're going to try to fix it and try to get to the root of where it's coming from. Now, your kid's gut can be a factory for mold. You can have colonized mold where this is multicellular yeast, multicellular fungus in the gut, and you can be a mold colony. That's very possible. And so we run organic acid tests all the time, and we'll see if these markers are elevated. We'll also run things like diarrhea-binose, because it's possible when kids have a lot of these mold issues, they also have diarrhea-binose, tartaric acid, oxy-3-glutaric. These are other markers for candida overgrowth. It's possible you could have both, because candida also produces different toxins, right? Acetaldehyde, that can impact brain health and development too. It can also impact, it can also eat a lot of B vitamins and a lot of nutrients that are really important for energy production too. And then when it comes to mold in the environment, we could be living in a moldy home. Combination of poor air filtration, maybe we need a good air filter. There's a lot of environmental stuff from the outside that comes in that we want to filter out. Kids can breathe it up in their sinuses, and they can be a mold factory in their nose. Think about it. Your nose is warm, dark, and moist, and so you can easily grow and replicate mold up in the nose, whether it's bacteria like a Marcons type of bacteria, which is methicillin-resistant staph coagulase, or it could be other types of bacteria or fungus up in the nose. And so it's good to clean that out with a good sterile saline, and also maybe even using like an Exfoliator product to kind of break down the microbes, break down the biofilms, and then flush it out with the saline afterwards. Really looking at the home environment. Do we have a high quality air filter that's HEPA grade, as well as filtering out using some kind of an activated carbon filter to get any other off-gassing from glues and paints and toxins in the furniture, in the floor, or in the glues on your hardwood or your vinyl or your carpet. All these can off-gas. And if someone's sensitive, if their immune system is overstimulated, these things could be a problem. And then, of course, the gut stuff. And a lot of kids these days, they're just fed a lot of processed sugar, processed food. Maybe they weren't breastfed. Maybe they didn't get that good, healthy gut permeability and immune support from a vaginal birth, from healthy breast milk. So all these things can play a big role, right? Again, it's not the be all or end all. There's a lot of things we can do about it, but these are all kind of predisposing factors that could set your kid up. And so also, if you have chronic high humidity in a home, that sets the table for mold growth in the home. So you need three major things for mold to grow. You need carbohydrate, and that could be acutely from a water leak coming in and then hitting the drywall, hitting the hardwood, hitting the studs of the house, like whatever. That could be it. And so you have the carbohydrate source, the fuel source. It could be on the micro level, so we have the acute level, right? And then we get on the chronic level. The chronic, it could just be dust in the air. That's your carbohydrate. And then you have the moisture. The moisture can be on the acute level, the leak coming in, the burst pipe from the freeze, or it can be from, on the chronic level, just high moisture, right? Moisture in the house greater than 50%, you're going to get that potential moisture. And then if it meets with the dust or meets with something like that, then that can easily start to cause mold to grow. This is why basements are notorious for having that smell, that musty basement smell. Why is it? Because basements are notoriously about 20% higher humidity than anywhere else in the home. And they're usually not lived in, not cleaned, and so dust can accumulate. And then with the high moisture, you're going to have that fuel right there for that mold to grow and that musty smell. Everyone has smelled that musty smell. Or if you've gone into someone's home that really hasn't been on top of their air conditioning, maybe they left for the week and left their AC off, and then what do you smell? It's like, ooh, it kind of smells a little musty. And so humidity is really important. Keeping that below 50 is vital. Like this time of the year where it's drier in the winter, most people's humidity is going to be lower because as the temperature of air gets colder, the air molecule gets more dense, and as it gets more dense and small, it has less capacity to hold on to moisture. As the molecules expand, as the temperature goes up, there's more capacity to hold on to the moisture. So as it gets colder, typically moisture goes down just because of the molecules of what we're dealing with there. And so as it gets warmer again, this will be a problem, especially you go anywhere in the South. An air conditioner, for the most part, even if it's on low 70s, let's say you're in the South, like Texas or even Florida, your HVAC is going to be at maybe 72, 70 in your home, but your humidity may still be at the low 60s. It still may not be below that 50%. So that's where you're really going to need a good quality dehumidifier to supplement a HVAC, because HVAC is temperature dependent or a dehumidifier is moisture dependent. And most of these places you're going to find that you hit that temperature of your low 70s, upper 60s, but your moisture is still 10% higher than where it should be. And this sets you up for having just more moisture and more mold in the home. And that could be a trigger for your child. Let me go into a study here that I saw the other day. I want to review it with you. Thought it was a big deal. So if you have any kids that have neurological issues, this is called the effects of mycotoxins on child development. It talks about mycotoxins are defined as fungus that have negative effects on human health. It impacts the immune system and causes developmental problems. Systemic disease and death can be observed. I'll just try to hit the big summaries here. As a result of the encounter, the baby's fetus and mycotoxins in the womb causes the rate of low birth rate in babies increases. At the same time, growth retardation, cognitive or congenital abnormalities, neural tube defects in the fetus. In infancy, mycotoxins and development retardation damage the immune system, health problems, especially gastrointestinal, so GI, tummy issues, bloating, gas, cognitive issues. As a result, encountering mycotoxins in childhood and adolescence, developmental delays, cognitive and neurological problems, and academic failures can be seen. And so any kid today in today's environment, they may have these issues. Is it mycotoxin based? It's hard to say, right? I always deal with things in a hierarchy. I have a checklist. I always do what I consider to be most foundational, least invasive, all the way down to what's more expensive and what's more invasive. And so we always start with food, because you could be making your kid's gut a chronic mycotoxin factory with just too much carbohydrate, feeding candida. Okay, now you have the unicellular, right? You have the unicellular fungus going on. You don't have the multicellular mold and the mycotoxins, but it's still going to be bad. And then your kid's gut could be a factory for mycotoxins, and we may see that on an organic acid test. We may also get the diet dialed in, and also we'll talk about food sources, but one of the big food sources of mycotoxins could be in food. And so when you go to this article right here, mycotoxins can build up in ripening corn, cereal, soybeans, sorghum, peanuts, and other foods fed crops, right? And then again, it talks about animals and meats. It's mainly in other foods that these crops are fed. So if you're eating grain-fed cows, those kind of things, grain-fed corn, then cows eating grain or corn or wheat, which are all grains, right? That's going to potentially increase mycotoxins in that animal. And so you could have mycotoxins from food. But let's say we're dialed in and we have the food checked off. All right, we're doing good there. Then I want to look at the environment. I want to look at the carbohydrate. I want to look at the processed food. And so when we look at mold, the first thing I say is, where's the sugar in the diet? Where's the processed grains? And then if we're eating meat, are we getting a lot of conventional corn-fed, grain-fed meat? So those are the big check marks I'm going to make sure that we're dialed in on first. We're going to make sure good proteins and good fats at every meal. And we're also going to look at the environment. I'll tell patients, let's get a humidity meter for your room and just for your house, and you can move it around. It'll tell you the high and low for humidity for the day for a 24-hour period. So we can see if we're going above 50 on average. That's a pretty good tool to see where we're sitting. And then we can, as the spring and the summer hits, we can keep an eye on it much closer and make sure we're good. We can also do some plate testing. Plate testing is a pretty non-invasive, not too expensive way. It's probably a little bit more affordable than some of the ERMI testing that's out there. And we can put a plate out for an hour or two. We can close it up, make a note where the location is, and we can see how many colonies have grown there. And we can see what kind of colonies. You can get pictures because Aspergillus and Stachybotrys look like they look more unique. And so you can look at it based on pictures, or you can send it to a lab and they'll officially diagnose it and look at it. I recommend try to do it yourself. And if anything is more than 5 colonies and looks like a mycotoxin based mold, Aspergillus, Fusarium, Penicillium, Stachybotrys, then send it to a lab. But there's a lot of molds that are out there that are just like from soil and from decaying plants that are outside and the leaves falling. This could be cladosporium. This could be microsporium, right? These are different molds from just decaying matter outside, which is actually normal. But that in alone, if you're really sensitive immune-wise, that could be enough to trigger you. That's why you still want to filter that out with a good air filter and flush it out of your sinuses so it's not hanging out in that cavity and growing. And so let me just kind of come back around. So we know that food could be a big deal. So I talked about some of the food stuff here. It could be intrauterine, so it could be the mother while the baby's in the mother's tummy. It could be after. And so the foods could be a big deal. Now, here's the deal. Most of these foods are going to be processed foods, right? So stay away from a lot of the junky peanuts, a lot of the junky grains, a lot of the processed sugar, the foods that I just mentioned earlier, right? A lot of these plant-based foods, that's where it's going to start. Right? And again, if you're talking about products with meat and eggs, guess what? It's going to be when animals eat those things. So try to get pasture-raised sources. So the chickens are eating bugs, for instance, or the cows are eating grass. So these are kind of common sense things. And again, there's more than 300 mycotoxins, like I mentioned. I mentioned the aflatoxin, the trichothecene, zearalenone is another one, and the fumonisin, and the ochratoxins, and the patulin. So these are different mycotoxins that are there. And this is the article here that talks about it again. That talks about the overview of the different food products. I mentioned a couple of them there for you right now. So I hope that helps, guys. So if I kind of go back, right, I like to zoom in, zoom out. So we know mycotoxins are a big deal. We know based on this one study here that it can impact learning. Let me go back to that one. So we know it can impact gastrointestinal. So if your kid has bloating, digestive issues, if your kid has cognitive issues, right, focus issues, developmental issues, we don't want to cross that off our list too early. We want to make sure that that's something that we address and look at. The easiest thing we can at least look at is the environment, plate testing. We can at least say no matter what, we're going to get a good quality HEPA filter with a VOC carbon filter as well. We're going to maybe get some plate testing done to see what's going on there, right? We can see if we have more than 5 colonies. We'll spread it throughout the house. We may also say, hey, I live in a climate where it gets pretty moist. I'm going to at least get a good moisture meter, humidity meter, put it in my rooms. You can get 1 or 2. You can move it around. You can get 1 or 2. It's fine. And see, am I chronically above 50%? If you're in an area where it's staying above 70 dew point, throughout the spring and summer on average, then that's a pretty moist area. You're probably going to need to add a dehumidifier along with your HVAC system. Now, you can get a portable dehumidifier. Like there's some ones that I'll recommend. I'll put links to products down below. This is an overwhelming topic, and I've been to the ringer. I practice what I preach. I have to because I wouldn't be equipped to help the people that come and see me, right? When you're put in these situations, you have to learn it, right? And so there's different dehumidifiers you can get that are not part of an HVAC system that work good. Or if you have an HVAC, you can just get a good like April Air or a whole house dehumidifier and plug it in that's always running, and it actually makes your air conditioners work better because there's less humidity in the air, and the air conditioners can cool the air better with the Freon when the air moisture is lower. So that's a good thing. It makes it easier for your HVAC system to work. And so we can go work on the plate testing. We can go get the air cleaner. We can go get the humidity down with the dehumidifier options. We can actually do some of that testing, send it to the lab. We can do some organic acid testing. You can work with a functional medicine doctor, get your kid's diet cleaned out. Make sure there's not a lot of those grains and processed foods or excess sugar that could be making your kids gut a mold factory, right? So all these things could be at play. And so if your kid's having these issues, look deeper. Just jumping your kid on some Ritalin or a methamphetamine or an Adderall or a stimulant, it's not going to fix the underlying issue. And who knows what that's doing to brain development. There's all kinds of studies saying that that may be an issue or not. But either way, we always want to get to the root cause. A lot of times those medications may help acutely, but they may not fix the underlying issue. And so always look deep and see if these root cause issues, I think, are at play. We know the peer-reviewed literature shows that, so we don't want to ignore it. All right. And of course, food is going to be important, and your brain is 70 to 80% fat. So if we're not eating good, healthy proteins and fats, I know I wasn't as a kid, right? It's a common issue. Kids are addicted to sugar, right? It's a big thing. My kids very rarely get it, and they want it when they see it, right? It's hardwired in our brain. Sugar meant nutrition, right? From an evolution standpoint, it meant nutrition. But the problem is today, with all these food scientists, our food is all hijacked and is incredibly nutrient devoid, inflammatory, lots of artificial flavors. You got all the dyes and colors and the red 40 in there, so not so good. So we really want to be on top of nutrition. We want to eat according to our brain health. We want good proteins, good cholesterols, good nutrients to make our healthy neurological tissue, to make our healthy cell membranes, to provide nutrients for our mitochondria so it can function on all 10 cylinders, if you will. So if you guys want to dive in deeper, if you need more support on this, you or your kids have a mold issue or a chronic gut or learning issue and you want to dive in deeper to get more support, there'll be a link down below where you can reach out, and we'll try to put some of our recommended products as a pinned comment down below so you guys can see what I'm actually using. And there's a lot of good stuff out there, a lot of bad stuff, a lot of good. I'll give you ideas of what I think are beneficial, and it's always changing. All right, guys, if you enjoyed it, please let me know. Please put a comment down below, and again, share with any family or friends that could benefit. Just take one thing from this video. If you just say, hey, I'm going to get a good air filter, right? I'm going to get a dehumidifier for my home. I'm going to start there. Oh, also, one thing is if your mold levels are high, air filtration and lowering humidity can help. That can be enough sometimes. Sometimes we need to come in with a dry fog botanical that we use a dry fogger with to denature and encapsulate that mold and knock the levels down. Again, it's different. If you have like mold because of a leak, you'll say your toilet overflowed and it wasn't addressed and now your drywall's all, an issue. That may have to be dealt with by a remediation specialist where they put up a zipper wall, they encapsulate that area, they run a negative air containment from a HEPA filter out a window or out a door, and then cut everything up, bag it in the zipper wall, and pull it out. So I always tell patients there's mold from acute issues and chronic issues. Chronic issues are usually easier to deal with because it's air filtration, dehumidification, maybe a dry fog, essential oil compound to denature. But when it's more acute, that's where we want to bring a specialist in. A lot of people will just break it all up, put it in bags, which is fine, but it's got to be zipper wall, negative air containment, then put it in, tie it up, and then bring it out. And then you'd want to really have everything cleaned up super well afterwards, and you would do a dry fog afterwards. And so just really make sure if you have one of those issues, hire a specialist that's using the top protocols to deal with mold from an acute standpoint. But then from the chronic standpoint, reach out to someone like me that can kind of walk you through and hold your hands on what that takes to get that done right. And we can test before and after and make sure it's good. And we'll put links down below and we'll pin those. Hope that makes sense, guys. It can be a little overwhelming. Again, I've done this so many times, so if you get overwhelmed, just reach out to me. We can break it down. We can make it simple. We can get you through it. And there's always simple things you can start with, just with the air filtration, just with a dehumidifier. Get some simple testing. Don't make a big deal about it out of the gate. Just do something, and you will see a benefit. Oh, one last thing, right? Allergic shiners. If your kids have a lot of allergic shiners, right, those bags under the eyes, that's a lot of times that the lymphatic is pooling, and there could be a lot of mold in the environment. So outside of just the learning and the ADHD stuff, that could be a big thing as well. Look for those allergic shiners too. All right, guys, hope you enjoyed. Link down below. Take care. Bye now.